We are sceptical about Aukus, and I think any fair-minded person who looked at it may take that view as well. But we're absolutely clear that it is a genuine public inquiry.
Aukus is the most expensive defence project in Australia's history. A project that at its heart has the plan to acquire nuclear submarines through the United States and the United Kingdom. But the doubts around it are growing over the cost, over whether Australia will get the submarines it's been promised, and over what the deal means for our sovereignty.
It's almost at the heart of Aukus. Is Aukus something which brings us into the US's potential war-fighting plans or otherwise? And if so, is that something that Australians agree with?
Now, a public inquiry in lieu of parliamentary debate, led by former Labor Minister Peter Garrett, is putting Aukus under scrutiny. I'm Daniel James, and you're listening to 7am. Today, Peter Garrett, and why he believes Australians deserve answers and whether it's too late to walk away. It's Monday, June 15. Peter Garrett, thanks for joining us. You've just had the first public hearing of the Aukus inquiry, which you're heading up. Was there any testimony that stood out to you?
Yeah, hi, Daniel. There sure was. I mean, we had former Foreign Minister Gareth Evans. His name may be known to some listeners, but certainly he was a very significant figure both in the Hawke government and the Keating government back in the day, and very well known internationally.
The notion that extended nuclear deterrence justifies our prostration, that the United States really would be prepared to sacrifice San Francisco for Sydney, let alone Miami for Melbourne, is and always has been a ludicrous delusion.
He was highly critical of AUKUS for a range of different reasons, some of which people would be aware of. The fact that the cost of the submarines is very high and the question of whether they'll arrive at all is still up in the air. But I think additionally he provided us with a really interesting context about what the Americans would expect if in fact we ended up taking the first part of the AUKUS subs deal, which is the nuclear-powered Virginia subs. And he pointed out the comments by senior American officials that essentially they would still remain American submarines.
Delivery of any Virginias to Australia would be highly imprudent without, quote, an ironclad guarantee that they can be deployed at the will of the United States.
And I think that was something which the inquiry was aware of, but we never heard it articulated so clearly by someone with that experience. The other bit of, I think, really interesting material that was submitted at this inquiry was the fact that the amount of high-level weapons-grade plutonium that these nuclear submarines do produce over their lifetime. And under this arrangement that the government has entered into, many people may not be aware that Australia is actually required to safely store that long-lived high-level radioactive waste.
Requiring not just absolutely strict isolation from the environment for health and environmental purposes, but military levels of security, because it will pose a proliferation risk and a theft risk for geological periods of time.
The other thing to say is that it was very interesting to hear from members of the public, and they had some really good questions that they were asking, and we had a really good day here in Melbourne.
Peter, this inquiry is led by a group of AUKUS skeptics, including yourself. So the criticism is that it's a bit of a show trial of sorts. What do you say to that? Are you heading towards a predetermined outcome?
And look, it's right that we are sceptical about AUKUS, and I think any fair-minded person who looked at it may take that view as well. But we're absolutely clear that it is a genuine public inquiry, and everybody, including the government and defence officials, are more than welcome to make submissions, which will be taken into account and which will be publicly available. And we will look sceptically at everything that comes to us and make determinations on the basis of the terms of reference that we've got in place. I mean, we've got a former chief of the Defence Forces, Admiral Chris Barry, is one of the commissioners. And we've got the elements of Aukus which are not really well understood by the public. There's sort of a pillar 1, which is the submarines, and there's a pillar 2, which is associated technological defence initiatives, things like drones and underwater capabilities and cyber security and so on. Now, it may be that some parts of Aukus actually are warranted. And if that were the case, then we'd be prepared to consider that as we made our recommendations. So, yes, we're sceptical, but it's an open public inquiry and all are welcome to put their views and they'll all be considered seriously.
Could you just give us a broad overview of the terms of reference of the inquiry?
So we want to consider the geostrategic significance of Aukus and the likely impact or otherwise on our relationships in the region. We want to consider the question of whether or not the fulfilment of Aukus is actually practical and possible, and ultimately at what cost. We want to consider the impact of this decision on First Nations people, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people, particularly I think people in South Australia who've already borne the brunt of nuclear testing back in the day when the British set off their nuclear weapons around Maralinga. But they have not been involved in any consultative process at all, and we, as yet, have no idea where potentially high-level radioactive waste, medium-level and high-level radioactive waste is actually going to go and how it's going to be stored. So I think that's a matter of great concern to First Nations people. And we have Karina Lester, daughter of Yami Lester, who was a significant leader in the APY lands back in the day, also sitting on the commission. We want to look at the employment and training consequences, the cost-benefit trade-off of Aukus, and whether there's enough information in the public domain for Australians to make up their mind as to whether they think this is a good deal or not.
You're asking Australians to make up their mind about whether it's a good deal or not. What would it take for you to change your mind about Aukus? And are you open to that?
Well, of course, you've got to have an open mind when you look at something like Aukus because there is so little information about it. I mean, one of the things that came out in yesterday's inquiry in Melbourne was the fact that the initial announcement about Aukus, the commitment of up to $368 billion, was essentially announced on, a basic sort of one-pager with a three-page annexure that came about a couple of years ago when the deal was first announced. Now, as a former government minister and someone who's been involved and watched politics for many years, I find that highly, highly incredible, only in as much as it's such a big thing and it runs out so far into the future. It's got so many bits and pieces to it. Where's the cost-benefit analysis? Where are the reviews about the likelihood of, supply chain interruptions? Where is the real deep consideration given in submissions from Defence and others about how shipyards will be built and submarines will be ported? And I mean, it's a really how long is a piece of string argument. So, yes, you do remain open-minded, but we're open-minded essentially in a bit of a vacuum because for a decision of this size and consequence, the amount of publicly available information and public debate that has accompanied it is incredibly minute.
Coming up, is it too late to back out of the deal? Peter, we've seen Labor MP Ed Husick break ranks to question the Aukus deal.
That deal versus what we've got now are different, and I think that it now gives us a moment to think about whether or not the deal should be reconfigured or what are the contingencies.
You're a former Labor minister. Are there more MPs and senators who have reservations about this behind closed doors? Are you hearing anything? What are people telling you?
Ministers and members aren't on the phone to me, Daniel, I have to say.
That's crazy.
Well, the one thing I can say about, so look, I don't know the answer to that is the truth of it. What I can say and what I'm seeing, though, is Labor Party branches, in other words, members of the Labor Party, which I am, rank and file members, are putting motions to the branches about Aukus. And there seem to be more and more of those branches who are responding in that way. Daniel, I don't want to get caught in the politics of what's going to happen with this discussion in the short term. I'm happy to answer the questions, but that is really a matter for sitting members, for the caucus, and for Labor branches around Australia. One of the reasons why I agreed to lead this inquiry was that I don't think it matters whether you're a member of the Labor Party, the Greens, One Nation or the Coalition. I think everyone has a stake in really good, thoughtful decisions being taken about our defence, about how we spend this money and what the implications are of the arrangements that we can see in front of us. And when I do a back of the envelope on the cost of Aukus, I'm up around $500 billion. It's a hell of a lot of money. For that amount of money, you could arguably, according to defence experts, have a bigger fleet of diesel submarines. You could have enhanced land-based defence forces, and you'd have quite a lot of spare change left over for schools and hospitals. Now, I'm not making light of it, but that's the fact. So I think that's the sort of thing that should concentrate anyone's mind, irrespective of whether they're in a political party or not.
What would backing out of AUKUS at this late stage do to our relationship with the US? Would it risk causing significant damage to the alliance at a time when China is on the rise? The argument is that we need protection and the US is there to protect us in the Asia Pacific. Would backing out now make us more safe or less safe?
Well, it's a legitimate question, but I think there's other ways of framing it, because this isn't late in the day, this is early in the day. Even though we're already sending money to America for the purposes of it speeding up its submarine building program so that they can build enough submarines so that we can then get the second-hand submarines. I mean, that's how this deal works, which is astonishing, really. We're essentially underpinning the American submariner construction capacity. Now, if that goes on and the subs never appear or don't appear in time to provide us with any form of defence, which is another issue that's been identified by defence experts, then the sooner we consider the deal clearly and properly, the better. On the question of the impact on the alliance with the US in particular, the general consensus of views that we're hearing up to this point in time, including from people like Gareth Evans, is that, yes, the nature of the relationship is important, and it's an important relationship for Australia, clearly, and has been for many years. But circumstances have significantly changed over time. That's partly because of the rise of China as another major power, but also because of the way in which this deal is structured and the presence of forward defence forces from the United States in Australia. And the question that arose yesterday, and I think it's almost at the heart of AUKUS, is AUKUS something which brings us into the US's potential war-fighting plans or otherwise? And if so, is that something that Australians agree with? Now, a healthy relationship between nation states and alliance partners depends on people recognising that it's the national interest that countries bring to that discussion. And if a country wants to really articulate its national interest clearly, then I believe that ought to be respected by alliance members, including the US. It's no surprise to hear me or anyone else say that at the moment that's a slightly turbulent question to be asking, given the current incumbent in the White House. But he's not going to be there forever, and there'll be future American administrations. And it's a matter that ought to be considered and judged on its merits at the time.
So what's next now for the inquiry, Peter, and what are you hoping finally comes out of it? Has the government given any indication or consider your findings when they come down?
So we hope to continue hearings. We'll go across to Western Australia, and of course, Stirling is one of the ports that next year will see American submarines, nuclear-powered submarines, and potentially weapons-armed submarines come through. Then we go to Adelaide. We've got to go to Port Kembla and Sydney, and we've got a few hearings to do. We'd like to do a few more. If we get more public support, that'd be great, and we will do more. And I'm hopeful that we can get a report done, well, by the middle of November at least. It may take a little bit longer depending on the amount of material that we've got to manage. And the hearings will be available to all and sundry as we travel through the country over the next couple of months.
And finally, Peter, it would be remiss of me, while we've got you, not to ask you about the state of our politics at the moment, particularly the rise of the populist right. Did you ever think you would see a day when One Nation was leading in the polls federally?
No, I didn't. I saw them come and go in Queensland back in the day, Daniel, and my experience was that once people really examine the policies of a party, when they get into the voting booth, then they might find that there are elements of one nation that don't actually stack up. Again, no surprises that I'm not a supporter of Miss Hanson and her views at all. And, you know, in a country which has had First Peoples living here for, well, it's upwards of 65, nearly 70,000 now, and probably go a little bit higher, where a significant proportion of us are recently arrived immigrants, to have a party that's got a race-based component to it, I find particularly objectionable. But at the same time, and I'm not providing succor to those that vote for, or I think you're voting for Hanson, I understand the frustrations, and I know that there are frustrations out there, particularly in the regions, for people who don't think they're currently well served by the mainstream political parties. So, yeah, we're in for a really vigorous debate, and it's a bit of a debate about the soul of the country, isn't it? And I think that's what Aukus is as well. So it's a good time to be talking to you, and we will welcome and work with anybody as we continue to explore this important issue of $368 billion worth of taxpayers' money going on submarines that may or may not get built.
Well, Peter, thanks so much for your time, and good luck with the inquiry.
Thanks, Daniel. All the best. See you, mate.
Also in the news, Tony Abbott is among those calling for a shark cull after a shark attack at Coogee Beach on Saturday left a swimmer in a critical condition. The woman was pulled to safety by a paddleboarder after being attacked by a 3.5-metre great white. Local surf lifesavers have also called for authorities to lift the ban on drones over Coogee so they can conduct shark surveillance in the area. And UFC fans have defended the UFC Freedom 250 spectacle set to take place in front of the White House this morning. The UFC has spent $60 million on what Trump has dubbed the greatest show on earth, with fighters set to face off in a special octagon created outside the presidential residence. The event marks the nation's 250th anniversary and the president's 80th birthday. I'm Daniel James. Thanks for listening to 7am. We'll be back tomorrow.